in the future, also the non-financial reporting. But part of the new regulations starting to come true already, reporting for this year need to be done next year by some part of the market. This will in the final phase about
Hi everyone, welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series brought to you by AKFI, Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I am the co-host of this talk series here with Manuel, our co-host here, and our special guest today, Peter. Hi, Peter. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to this talk series, we get to bring together great minds to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And we're glad to have Peter joining us today to share his perspective, a little bit about Peter before we start it to our audience. Peter brings 20 years experience in supporting large enterprises on their journey towards business agility and fitness for future. I really like that metaphor, fitness for future. I do believe every one of us and every organization, we need to get in shape for the future. He's an active agile practitioner and coach who is often found coaching and training senior level decision makers through their lean agile journey. Peter has a scientific background in cybernetics, complex adaptive systems dynamics, and evolutionary strategies, which frames his approach on organizational development. And Peter owns a company called, Peter owns Co-Evolve. Is that a company name? Just to confirm. Yes, Peter owns Co-Evolve, which offers training, consulting, and coaching services directly or via a number of collaboration partners. And he is also a certified enterprise and transformation coach and frequent contributor to agile interest groups and speaker at different conferences. Once again, Peter, thank you for taking your time, and let's get the conversation started. Usually we had this very flexible, broad opening questions just to let us guests to give us some insights based on your particular experiences. So feel free to share with us what are your thoughts on current sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation trends in Europe, particularly maybe, and global wise.
Well, I think if we look on climate action tracker and the tracker of the SDGs, we can see that we are not moving fast enough. So we are not on track on reaching our climate or SDG targets as of now. And I think therein lies a chance to connect and bridge the communities of agile, digital transformation and the SDG community, because with this digital transformation and learning about agile, it's all about learning faster adaptation, right? And it used to be faster adaptation in terms of technology changes and business model changes and stuff like that. But learning to adapt faster would also help us adapt faster towards becoming more sustainable. So I think this is a time of opportunity to learn from each other. So the digital transformation, the agile people taking this adaptability and how to do that in large companies together with SDG in the sustainability community, and by connecting, bridging, and learning from each other, I think both could benefit.
Do you see this trend, Peter, also as a global trend, if you have visibility of it? And, you may add a comment.
Yeah, so I did see some while ago bridging and connecting, for example, between the professional coaching community and the agile community, right? So they learned we need to get better at addressing the concerns at C-level, talking to executives and stuff like that. And these are competences and experiences that the professional coaches do have, while at the same time those professional and executive coaches learn, hey, a lot of the stuff we hear about what's of concern and current on the mind of the CEOs has to do with agile transformation and agility and becoming more adaptive. So these are the competences of the agile community. So I think we do have examples that such bridging of communities can work and does work. And I think that could be also a model in how we can integrate sustainability into the picture. And I do see this when talking to the boards or the C-level, when they talk about, okay, what are risks and opportunities for our business, then for sure sustainability is also part on the agenda. And it's clear that on the one hand, that poses some risks of not being compliant, penalties, more effort for reporting, stuff like that. But at the same time, it's also a chance and an opportunity to extend the business model, to work on being more attractive to future employees by showing up. I do care about SDG, and we are doing something in that direction, and so on. So I think there are many ways we can connect to those themes.
So, going a little bit more in details, but I hear you saying there is a close link between agility, and SDG goals. And of course, goals need to be implemented, right? So, would you like to elaborate a little bit on how agile and the goals and the KPIs to meet the sustainability work together?
Yeah, so I do think what is often missing in implementation plans of those sustainability programs, for example, in the European community, is they are still based, on these long-term waterfall plans. So 2 years of analysis, then 2 years of coming up with designing solutions. And then once they want to start implementing, the world has changed already 20 times. And the plans do not really match reality anymore. And I think creating those transparency, those fast feedback cycles in how politics and national governments and European community, for example, approach this kind of systemic change could learn very well from doing it iteratively, incrementally in very short cycles.
So taking the clock and moving it faster, right? Is it the Oh, that's a great way to put it. Thank you, Peter. I know you're very deeply involved in following and to some level influencing the European community, and we discussed actually the need and the direction of the European community for a single common standard for sustainability. To mention, last night I had the representative of the EV industry talking about exactly the same. It's like, which standard do we need to follow? How are we going to to meet a common standard for ESG and sustainability. So I know there is a proposal on the table. We talked about this before. Would you be able to give us a quick summary?
Yeah, so essentially the intention of the European Community Council is to establish sort of eye level between financial reporting and non-financial reporting. So as of now, it's quite unbalanced. Financial reporting is much more important. There's more scrutiny about it, more effort going into it, more transparency about it. And the European community is trying to lift this sustainability reporting to be on the same level that financial reporting is already today. So that's one thing. And the other thing is they want to create more transparency for more companies. So up until now, this financial reporting is basically only for large enterprises, right? So if you're on the stock exchange or similar things, the large enterprises, they have a legal requirement to do this financial reporting in the future, also the non-financial reporting. But part of the new regulations starting to come true already, reporting for this year need to be done next year by some part of the market. This will, in the final phase, about 4 years from now, mean 10,000 more companies in the European community need to do sustainability reporting compared to today. So they are addressing a large part of the companies in the European community that will become subject to sustainability reporting. And they do that in an incremental way. So starting with companies with more than 500 employees, then going down to companies with 250. So every year, the reach of this sustainability reporting will extend.
I'm sorry, so 10,000 companies will need to start reporting in this year, 2023?
No, not all 10,000 of them at one.
Okay.
That's the end state when the whole plan is rolled out in terms of EEC sustainability reporting.
Okay, and the target year for the whole plan to be roll out. Okay, very, very interesting. And I think the follow-up question, and this is an important question also for, especially for the US, for the non-EC companies, and there are many that have global footprint. And part of this question is actually a note that in the US also the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC, it's discussing to release similar regulations regarding companies. So can you elaborate? Can you estimate? Can you guess a little bit? Help us guess what is the impact on the global companies that have operations in Europe as well?
So at the moment, there is not the one single sustainability reporting standard available, right? So there are multiple frameworks, Global Compact, GRI, efforts by the IFRS, many things. And what the EC currently did is they created a framework of requirements towards sustainability reporting. And out of those requirements, now all the different players in the field have to come together and agree on what's the standard for sustainability reporting. So at the moment, right now, this one single standard does not yet exist. It's evolving at the moment. And
so this is, I'm sorry, so this is sort of related to the first question of a common standard, correct?
Right. So the common standard is currently evolving, and one of the big players, and they formed an alliance, are of course the international standardization bodies who did already standardization work for the financial reporting. So basically the same players that defined the financial reports are coming together and trying to make a proposal. Okay, this would be our proposal to do the non-financial SDG reporting based on our experiences with the financial reporting. And then, of course, people from the SDG community, TI and EcoGood and many others, B Corp and so on, they bring their voices to the table too. And out of that, we assume some sort of single standard will emerge.
Out of curiosity, and this AKFI contributed to some comments to this non-financial reporting for the social, for the SEX and for the IOSCO, which is sort of the umbrella organization for all these security and exchange groups. Is it AI, if you know, is it artificial intelligence use part of it? We found the references in the drafts. So I don't know if you had any exposure to drafts that talk about AI and the use of technology and essentially digital transformation.
So I think there's separate things going on in parallel. So one is, for example, creating more transparency about the supply chain, right? That's one
Right.
thing. And while it's a topic on its own, it's also a topic that goes into the SDG reporting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to show you are sustainable, you have the scope 3 reporting, and that means you need to look upstream and downstream of your own company. And therefore, then we are in the supply chain and how the supply chain becomes transparent in reports. And similar, I think there are regulations like we have for genetically modified things. The same is true about ethical concerns relating technology and AI, for example. And also there we need to take care that certain concerns and interests are taken care of, and we create some sort of security and boundaries of what should go in the market and hit customers and users.
So no, and thank you for sort of putting on the table the supply chain and the challenges they face and the complexity they face as they have to report probably to multiple suppliers, you know, going toward the top of the pyramid. There is more and more reporting required by different entities, regulatory as well as let's say, the distribution part of the supply chain. So thank you for bringing this forward.
And of course, because of this complexity and the sheer amount of data that needs to be processed, I think there is no way around automation and AI to do that. So to do all that reporting work manually and telephone up all your suppliers and write down the numbers will for sure not work for large companies.
I'll leave the next question to Isabella, but before going there, I wanted to mention that Isabella is actually a bestseller author of The Digital Mind of Tomorrow, and I'm sure, not that I'm sure, I read the book, so I know AI it's a central actor in the future. And maybe Isabella can say a couple of words about the book as we move on to the next question.
Thank you, Manuel, for always tuning in my book theories. Sorry, that's my family member. My book series, and absolutely AI. It's a very, very hot topic in every sense. We were just talking about my family dinner, and everyone was asking about it, about this big thing recently, ChatGPT, something like that. Yeah, they wanted to know what's going on. It seems like I see a very how do I say it? A very split angle when it comes to AI as a very insightful technical engineer, or as an outsider, like everyone, like public. They hold a very different perspective, and I think it's very important to educate, or at least to bring real information to the general public, not just people who work on things like that, to know what's really going on with artificial intelligence. And returning to my book, and that's part of the message to send out the message to let the people know what's going on, to really reflect and to look for the truth, instead of just hearing what are the media saying, or what are the companies it's advertising. It's the age that we all need to hold on the responsibility to educate ourselves and take our action accountable in this digital age, and to have a future that we know what we're doing, and not just assuming based on what we're hearing. So that's just part of my book story. I don't want to take too much time here, but thank you for people like Peter here to really sharing insightful information on every sense, to let us know the truth of this to me a little messy and chaotic digital age.
I think we have tools or technologies, and we can use them for good or for bad. So think of nuclear power. There are clearly benefits and massive risk with that. Then genetic modification, same thing. And AI, I think, is similar. So of course there are opportunities and there are risks, and I think, as you said, we need to be transparent, look on both sides, and find a way forward by having a as good as possible picture.
Thank you. Well, I'll let Manuel follow up another question if there's any.
Sure.
And
No, thank you very much. And as we talked about this challenge for the suppliers, I wanted to bring a little bit more into focus the digital transformation. And I know that Peter has a lot of experience and hands-on experience, as well as participating in development of requirements and standards. But when we bring the digital transformation, Scrum, and the agility, do you have some specific recommendations for companies to how to use this new technologies and actually new business models to transform their sustainability and ESG processes? So one of the observation I wanted to make is that digital transformation is only part of the transformation pie, so to speak, right? Which includes also sustainability and ESG.
Yes, definitely. So, my scientific background is systems biology, evolution, complex adaptive systems, ecology, all this kind of stuff. And that's why I picked the term fitness for future as survival of the fittest. That kind of fitness is what I meant, right? So you need to fit into your environment to be able to survive and thrive. And that's what I think business agility is about. And today it's very clear there can be no sustainable future without sustainability. So it is part of the equation whenever we think of how can we be in the future.
Right. Adaptation to the environment is the first rule of biology. If the organism or the species wants to exist first and then thrive second. So I can see I can visualize the relationship. That's that's very insightful actually. Is it any element of digital transformation as we go through these industrial revolutions, right? The digital transformation, sometimes being called the fourth one. We come up with new models, new technologies, new capabilities to really better understand our environment. So hence being more adaptable. Any more thoughts on the digital transformation part?
Yeah, I think don't confuse means with ends.
Okay.
So I think there's an quite unhelpful discussion of my fork is better than your knife. Kind of discussions. My safe is better than your less. My lean is better than your scrum. And I think that's totally leading us off the track of, hey, what are we trying to achieve? And in my context, which is specific to me and different from yours and yours, in that context and given the resources and given the goal we want to achieve, these two components, where do I want to go, where I am today, take that into account and then come up with an idea and iterate towards those goals. So, and for some people, the right answer might be at some point in time, this tool and this methodology, and for others, it's something else. So don't go for, this company used that kind of tool, so that must be a great tool and it will work for me in the same way that it worked for them. I think that's not a good idea.
So listening to you and also to Isabella, the world is becoming more volatile, more uncertain. There is this term VUCA, right, for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it looks that the environment becomes more complex for us. And there is a certain level of uncertainty, which leads actually not only to complexity and ambiguity, but also leads to polarization in the political sphere, in the economic sphere, in the you mentioned biology. So almost any science we have has now or goes toward one of these VUCA states. Is this observation correct in your view, Peter?
Yeah. So trying not to become too academic about it. But what I think most people can agree on is that the connection density of the world is increasing exponentially. So we make more and more connections faster and faster. And if you think in terms of a two-dimensional network, the more connections you make, the more kind of network loopholes you have, right? So, and each loop in that network, so there are small loops, larger loops, even larger loops, so lots of recursion. And this is exactly what's happening today in the world, in economics, in politics, in everything. Everything gets connected. And by having more of these connections, we also have more recursion, more feedback loops. And that creates a total different system behavior than if we have only a few of them or they change only at a slow pace.
I hope we adapt, right? we end up with chaos, with complex adaptive systems. Otherwise, I have questions about the future if we cannot adapt, right? If this system, let's say, destroys itself.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, please.
There's there's actually cybernetics is a old science, at least 60 years, right? And we have some science about that. And there's, for example, one of my favorite quotes is Ashby's law: only variety can absorb variety.
Oh, interesting.
So that means if the system I'm trying to steer or control or survive it can take on 50 million states, I need to be able to create 50 million responses to all those different states. If the system that I'm trying to control can only have 5 states, it's enough if I can produce only 5 response options. And that's the thing. So we need to learn to broaden our set of how can we respond to challenges that we never faced before. And
that's very interesting. We need also good filters, otherwise we end up with the same amount of challenges we face and confusion at the end because we cannot figure out which of them are good solutions, right?
Right, and that also means we cannot prepare for all those 50 million possible futures. And that means we need to take these short-term, fast feedback route of do something, see how the world changes, how does that match my expectation of what would happen, and then adapt and do the next step.
So pilots and minimum.
We need to do this in the frequent sampling, and that's actually how all living beings work, how our mind works. We do this about 60 times a second. We take stock of the world, integrate it in our model, and out of that comes behavior and body action and whatever.
So I hear the agility theme coming back again.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yeah.
Oh, extremely interesting. Well, I'm watching the clock, and I'd like to invite you actually back because I'll leave Isabella with our last question for today. But it's such a insightful and deep discussion. I really thank you, Peter, and I'll go back to Isabella to close today's sessions with her last question, but definitely would like you back to maybe a more in-depth discussion about cybernetics, biology, the United Nations goals, and how all these things come together or shall come together.
Looking forward to it.
Isabella, back to you.
Manuel likes to be more optimistic of everything. He likes optimistic answers, and he wants a more hopeful future. So I'll end this discussion with a positive question. We've talked about challenges. We've talked about, what's going on ahead, how uncertain everything is, and how polarized the situation we're facing right now in terms of many different things in the technological world. So Peter, what makes you feel hopeful about the future? Please share something.
Yeah, as I said, so one of the things is I think we did see that we can collaborate and we can learn from each other. So I mentioned this, the coaching community and the agile community finding together and learning from each other. And I think the same could be true for sustainability and the technology ideas and agile and bringing it all together. So I think we do have positive examples of this working and succeeding. And the other thing that might give us hope, I think the pandemic sort of proved that we can do fast, large-scale changes if we put our minds and will to it. So it is mostly a matter of will and not a matter of not being able to do it. So I think this whole SDG change and the vast change that needs to happen not only in technology but in economics and politics and also on, all of that is doable if we really want to. And we did see we can do such large scale things because we did them during the pandemic.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
clear
you.
example. We can change on a dime, right? The way we say.
Yeah.
But it has to
Right.
be a lightning rod, some event that unfortunately leads us to this, and definitely pandemic is not a way to change. You know, it's not. I won't choose it as the engine of our changes, but what we understand very well, I think, are the challenges of the environment, the changes in society, and the changes in economics, and the changes in social, in biology you mentioned, in genomics and so on, in genome and genomics and so on. Isabel, Peter, so any closing remark?
Yeah, I think it's basically on us. So we know what needs to be done. We have not only the knowledge, we have the tools. We could do it. We saw we can do it. So all it needs is doing it.
Thank you. That's very optimistic, very positive. I like the determination and the confidence, which I think is the key to do anything, to make anything possible. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Manuel, for this great discussion. And thank you all to our audience for taking the time joining us today. Make sure to tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talk series, where you can gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. So until the next week, goodbye for now. Thank you all. Bye,
Thank
Peter. Bye,
you.
Manuel.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much, Isabella. See you soon.